tired of the fuss it took to do anything besides sleep, tired of the smell and taste of antibacterial everything, of being surrounded by stainless steel. The buildings of Nashville had scattered to make way for rolling pasture that rose up before Bryce's eyes like bread baking, and she felt the road change from pavement to gravel under the tires. They were in her neighborhood. She couldn't wait to collapse on the giant corduroy couch in her living room and drink some lemonade out of the plastic Vanderbilt cups that passed for stemware at the Grahams. The car finally slowed, and Bryce's vision was filled with her big blue house, the stone pathway up to the door seeming to float in the lawn like lily pads. It was beautiful and different in her new way of seeing, but just that it was still there was enough. Her father set up the wheelchair near the curb. Sydney stood outside the door in bare feet and an enormous t-shirt with the Muppets on it, looking half asleep.
"Sydney," her father called. "Take Bryce to her room. We'll go get everything set up inside."
Sydney latched onto the chair and wheeled Bryce down the hill in the back of her house, toward the pool and the basement entrance. Bryce's entrance. Bryce's room was the only bedroom downstairs, and on summer days she would leave the sliding doors open and blast her pump-up playlist from the speakers in the common room. She and Greg and Gabby would practice on the high dive or take turns pushing each other into the water. Bryce smiled to herself. Her dad was always at the office, but when her mom was home, she would play Queen albums out of courtesy. "For God's sake," her mom would say if hip-hop entered the mix, coming around the side of the house, her pale knees streaked with dirt under her gardening apron. "At least pick something I can sing along to." Bryce couldn't wait to see the bright blue of the pool. She had grown up as comfortable in the water as she was on land. Before long, she was happiest in the air, the emerald lawns spilling out around her for miles. But as they came down the hill, she grimaced. The pool was full of bugs and sticks and leaves. The high dive was encrusted with dirt. "There," Sydney said as they reached the back entrance. "I'm so glad to be home," Bryce sighed, but as they wheeled through the sliding doors, she gasped. The floor was covered in bright white tile, and the only places to sit were long, boxy shapes near the wall. In the corner sat a large black rectangle, hardly a chair, and where the antique grandfather clock had once been were vivid red platforms topped by black and white sculptures. Bryce felt like she was in the lobby of a trendy hotel. "What happened?" she stammered. There was a moment of silence before Sydney looked up from her phone. "Oh, yeah, it's really different, I bet," she said, barely glancing at Bryce. Bryce rolled forward, but it was not onto the rust-colored shag carpet. There were none of the tables with bowls of hard candy on them, or the vases of dried flowers she and Sydney picked for her mother when they were kids. This was not her basement. "I wish someone had said something." Bryce took a deep breath, wheeled across the tile, and reached to open the door to her room. The light was the same, hazed a little bit by the plants in the window wells. Dust swirled in the soft beams pouring in. Her trophies were gone from the dresser, and they'd taken down her John Wayne posters. A little part of Bryce expected her bed to be unmade like she'd left it, her jeans to be on the floor, her dirty dishes stacked on her dresser. There was noise from upstairs. Her parents were starting dinner. Bryce looked at her sister standing near the closet, turquoise fingernails tapping on her phone. "Well, at least there are no weird statues in here," Bryce sighed. "Right," said Sydney. She put away her phone as Bryce wheeled back toward the door. "Hang on," she said. Bryce stopped. "I just want to say this while Mom and Dad aren't, hovering." Sydney looked down at her feet, twisting her shirt in her hands. "I'm sorry I was drunk when you woke up." Bryce almost wanted to laugh at how much like the old Sydney she looked just then, like she was being forced to apologize for biting her sister. "It's okay, Sid." She tried to smile reassuringly. "How often do you go out like that, anyway?" Bryce asked.